All right, today we're talking about how to upgrade the single most powerful tool you own, your mind. And we're going to do it using something called mental models.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a question for you. Think about it. Your phone probably gets a software update, every month? Your apps are constantly updating, but when was the last time you updated your thinking? When did you last install a new version of your own internal operating system?
Well, that's exactly what we're about to do. Seriously, think of this as a powerful software installation, but for your brain. We are going to give you a whole new set of tools that'll help you see the world more clearly and, honestly, just make way better decisions.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the problem. Why do we even need an upgrade in the first place? Well, it turns out the default software our mind comes with, it can get surprisingly outdated.
And this is the heart of the issue, right? The world around us is just accelerating like crazy. You see it in technology, society, the economy. But our ways of thinking, they often just don't keep up. It's kind of like trying to run the latest, most powerful apps on a computer you bought back in 2005. The engine just can't handle it. It sputters, it crashes. You know, what's fascinating is how this limited perspective really works. And there's this old story that just nails it. The parable of the blind men and the elephant. You might have heard it. One guy touches the tail and says, "Aha, it's a rope." Another one feels the leg and is convinced it's a tree trunk. A third one grabs the tusk and swears it's a spear. Now here's the thing. Every single one of them is right about their tiny little piece of reality. But they're all completely wrong about the big picture. And that's us. That's what we do every single day when we rely on just one limited point of view.
So, what's the fix? How do we see the whole elephant? The solution is to build a whole collection of what we call mental models. And a mental model is really just a simple idea, a framework that helps you understand how something in the world works. They are the apps, the software, the operating system that your mind uses to make sense of everything, to navigate reality, and to make all those big and small decisions.
And look, to really get why having lots of these models is so important, we have to understand one single fundamental idea. The map is not the territory.
This is such a great way to think about it. Imagine a metro map for a big city, say Riyadh. That map is incredibly useful, right? For one specific job, getting you from station A to station B. But that map is not Riyadh. It's just a simple drawing. It doesn't show you the scorching heat, the crazy traffic on the streets above, or the amazing smell of coffee coming from the cafes. And guess what? All of our mental models are exactly like that map. They're useful, for sure, but they are not the real thing. They're not the complex, messy, beautiful reality itself.
So, if one map is always going to be incomplete, what's the solution? What do we do? Well, it's simple. You don't just use one map. You build a whole toolkit of different maps, different models, and you learn to lay them on top of each other. That's how you get a much richer, much more accurate picture of what's really going on.
All right, let's do it. Let's start building that toolkit right now. This first set of tools, this is all about deconstructing problems and, just looking at them from a completely different angle.
First up, we've got what's called first principles thinking. So instead of reasoning by analogy, doing something just because that's how it's always been done, you break a problem all the way down to its most basic fundamental truths. The perfect example is Elon Musk with SpaceX. Everyone, conventional wisdom, said rockets are ridiculously expensive, period. But Musk didn't accept that. He asked a different question. What is a rocket actually made of? And when he looked into it, he found that the raw materials, the aluminum, the carbon fiber, they only cost about 2% of the total price tag. The other 98%, that was just people and processes. By going back to the absolute basics, he completely reinvented an entire industry. That's the power of this.
Okay, so that's about breaking problems down. But what if we just flip the whole thing on its head? So instead of always asking, okay, how do I achieve success?
What if we ask the opposite? And that's the mental model of inversion. It flips the question completely. The famous investor Charlie Munger had this great line. He said, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." Think about that. Instead of just chasing success, you figure out everything that is guaranteed to cause failure, and then you just make sure you don't do those things. It's an incredibly powerful way to clear the path forward.
All right, so now we have tools to take problems apart. Let's add some tools that help us see how things play out over time. This next toolkit is all about getting a much deeper handle on cause and effect.
And there's this incredible true story that explains our next tool, second-order thinking, perfectly. It's called the Cobra effect. Back in colonial India, The British government was worried about all the venomous cobras slithering around. So they came up with what seemed like a brilliant, simple solution. They offered a cash reward for every dead cobra. And hey, at first it worked. The number of cobras on the streets went down. That's the first order result. But they forgot to ask the most important question. And then what? Well, then what happened was that people, being enterprising, started to farm cobras to cash in on the reward. Once the government caught on, they scrapped the program. And the result? The cobra farmers just released all their now worthless snakes into the streets, and the problem ended up being twice as bad as when they started. It's a huge lesson. Always, always ask, and then what?
Now, thinking about the future obviously means dealing with uncertainty, right? And this brings us to another tool, probabilistic thinking. See, our brains love certainty. We want things to be black or white, yes or no. But reality, it's all shades of gray. It's all probabilities. Thinking this way just means getting comfortable with assigning chances to things. You know, you might think there's an 80% chance your project will succeed, but then you get some bad news and you have to be willing to update that number down to, say, 50%. The best thinkers are always updating their beliefs as new information comes in. They don't just cling to old ideas.
Okay, so to navigate all these complex consequences and probabilities, you really need one more thing, a bit of humility. And that's what our final toolkit is all about, knowing your own limits and always, always pushing for clarity.
This idea is captured perfectly by the circle of competence. Think about Warren Buffett. The guy is an absolute genius when it comes to investing in certain types of businesses, like insurance or candy companies. That's inside his circle. But he'll be the first to tell you he doesn't get tech or modern retail. Those are outside his circle. See, the real danger in life isn't being wrong about something. It's not knowing the edge of what you know. Real wisdom is just being brutally honest about where your knowledge ends and then making your big decisions inside that circle.
And for our last tool, we have Occam's razor. This thing is like a lightsaber for cutting through noise and complexity. The idea is so simple. When you have a bunch of competing explanations for something, the simplest one, the one with the fewest what-ifs and assumptions, is usually the right one. We humans, we love to invent these complicated, dramatic stories, especially about why people do what they do. Occam's razor is just a reminder to chill out and favor the simple explanation. You know, is your coworker ignoring your messages as part of some complex plot against you? Or did they just not see your email yet? Yeah, the simpler answer is almost always the right one.
Whew! Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. So let's wrap this up. Let's bring it all together and finally install that upgrade. So here's what's in your new mental toolkit. First, you can deconstruct and invert problems to see them in a totally new light. Second, you can see the consequences, thinking through the chain of events to avoid those Cobra effect disasters. And third, you know your limits, which helps you stay humble, clear, and simple. And please remember this. These are not just some abstract philosophical theories. Not at all. These are apps. They are practical tools that you can run right now on your own mental operating system to make better choices. So I want to leave you with one final question. Think about it. What is one decision, one problem, one challenge you are facing right now? I mean, really think of one. Now, how would that problem look different if you ran it through one of these new apps? What if you applied first principles to it, or inversion, or thought about the second-order consequences? Give it a try, because that, right there, that's how the upgrade